Okay, so it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to two very good friends of mine, Linda and Phil, who collectively own a company called International Visual. What inspired me to kind of bring them to Glee was back in February, I ran a retail safari in London for some garden centres. I decided that garden centres needed to see something outside of garden retail. So we took a whole group of garden centres to Stratford City and the new Westfields shopping development right next to the Olympic Park. And we had some really quality time, because we spent some time setting the tour up, with Marks and Spencer's, Primark, lots of big companies and brands that were presenting themselves basically in preparation for the Olympics. Because if you think about it, the brands had the world at their feet for those 4 weeks. So companies like Marks and Spencer's were really trying some new cool stuff. And as a result of that, it opened my eyes to the idea of, okay, we need to take visual merchandising more seriously as an industry. And that's what brought me in contact with Linda and Phil, whose business model is purely that. They spend their time working with retailers, all sizes, all over the UK, occasionally further afield, to bring those. And what I've asked them to do is to kind of think about this audience and give you some ideas as to how you might use visual merchandising in your own stores.
Welcome to our session on visual matters. As John has already explained to you, our company's name is International Vision Limited. But just before we start our session, we thought we'd tell you a little bit about ourselves, a little bit about our background, so you understand why we can come here and talk to you with some authority about how to make shops look good. I founded International Visual about 5 years ago along with Phil, so Phil and I are business partners. But prior to that, I worked for 15 years with House of Fraser. So I was the visual merchandising director there. So as my role as visual director in House of Fraser, we looked after the exterior look of the store, all of the branding, the windows, the window displays, the design of the fixtures, and all of the retail interior design. So that included all the shop fits. For all the own label brands, we designed it in-house. And then for concessions, they had to come through us before they were allowed to go into the shop. On top of that, we designed all of the packaging and all of the customer interaction materials, so that's the leaflets and the ticketing and the signage and the point of sale. Phil was one of the members in my team there, and we worked together there for 15 years, and I'll let Phil introduce himself.
Thank you. I've been in retail all my life, since I was 16. I started on the youth training programme. People might know it as apprenticeship scheme. Now it's a bit posher than when I first started, so I'm showing my age. But I love retail, and I started off just sweeping the floor and making coffee and not being allowed to even talk to customers to begin with. I was in sports retailing. I'm the most unsporty person you'll ever meet. However, I got to know a lot about the sports industry, and that was an industry that we didn't really have visual merchandising in. We had windows and we had great product, but we didn't know what to do with it. And just because I have an OCD in keeping things looking neat and tidy, I got a bit of a name for myself for having a really, really good store. Not only was I putting money in the till, but I was making things look good, including my window. And things that I was featuring in my window were outselling the rest of the company, and they didn't understand why. So they came along and had a look, and I explained about the windows, and I ended up actually doing the windows for all the stores in the company. It was just a little family-run business at the time, 6 stores. It now has over 40 stores, and in fact it has been bought out now, and the owners have made their multi-millions and gone off to pastures new in the sunshine. Lucky them. So through visual merchandising, they put a lot more money in the till. I then moved on, and I had my own restaurant, and I had my own card business. And I met Linda whilst I was working for a visual merchandising consultancy firm, and moved into House of Fraser. And we really saw ourselves in House of Fraser as the guardians of the look of the company. House of Fraser is a department store group and covers lots of different lifestyles over many different stores and over many different floors, and also many different products. So whilst working there, we got to touch everything. And whereas in a big department store like House of Fraser, you have dedicated people looking after certain things like a marketing team, and even within a department store you have somebody looking after a cook shop and a perfumery shop. Visual merchandisers have to look after everything. They have to sprinkle the magic everywhere. Hence why we called ourselves the guardian of the look, because it was important that we had an umbrella view over the whole store to make it look strong.
Okay, so whilst there, we were very fortunate to win many awards. So we were award winners in window design, store design, use of mannequins, and I actually was a judge then on the international and the national awards for the UK for windows. So judging companies like Selfridges, Harvey Nichols and so on. So we're very proud to be involved in that award industry as well. We left House of Fraser 5 years ago because our jobs were put at risk, and Phil and I were both offered the opportunity to apply for the same job. So we decided not to do that. We left, took our redundancy money and started up our own business. We're in business 5 years, so we've only ever traded in tough times. We don't know what it's like to trade in good times because we haven't had any yet in 5 years. So
But we're still here.
We're still here, and we're still standing. And we're very, very lucky with some of the work that we've done. We've really enjoyed it. We are experts in retail interior design, enhancing environments or creating new environments. But our expertise is really there for a purpose, and that's to attract customers to products and to create sales. So we only feel we've done our job well if the store takes more money. So the whole purpose of it is to actually build sales. So we look at visual merchandising and creative training. So we can either do it or we can teach people how to do it. So we're here today to give you a little bit of an insight into what we do and to give you some ideas to steal, to take back to your shops and your businesses.
Okay, so we've got a varied client sheet. Because we are known in the multi-retailers, we've worked with people like Marks & Spencer's, Boots, L'Oreal, New Look, lots of brands that you'll recognise there. For those companies, we actually do a lot of creative training, because it's really hard for these companies, or any company, year in, year out, to come up with new ideas. So we go in and inspire people and give them new ideas. But there's lots of non-high street brands. When we started the company, because we'd been working for a multi-retailer for a long time, and we both live in small towns, we wanted to make sure we were working with independent retailers as well. So we've actually gone out and made sure that we are working with independent retailers all over the country. And recently, it's quite interesting, we've been working with county councils. I don't know whether anybody has heard of the Mary Portas report that's been going on about how to save the high streets. Well, before that, actually, the government did give county councils money for visual merchandising, but a lot of these councils didn't really know what to do with it. So we were very lucky enough to actually read a report on it and write to some of the councils, and actually, we weren't touting for business, we were actually saying to them, do you know what visual merchandising is, and do you know what to do with it? And guess what? They didn't, because they hadn't heard of it before, being in a county council. So we then moved on to actually work with 3 county councils. One of them was still working with Hillingdon, and we worked with over 300 independent stores all over the country, really to give them help and advice, because they don't have the team support that people do in bigger companies. Very often, independent retailers, and even some of you guys, being small, if you're just owned by a few people, only have you to do it. So you don't have the support of big other teams to come in and help you. And then we work internationally as well, something that we've never done before, hence why we called ourselves International Visual. It's a bit of a smokescreen, because when we started the company we hadn't worked internationally, but by putting that name on there, we actually did our first job. We worked in Kuwait setting up a store out there. Since then we've worked all over the world.
Okay, so the first question is, what is visual merchandising? So all of you are sitting here. First of all, I'd like to ask, how many of you here are responsible for visual merchandising in your business?
Or the look of your stores if you don't have visual merchandisers?
Anybody? Part of it, yeah? Okay, well what we'd like to do is by the time you leave, we'd like you all to think you are responsible. Everybody in the business who's walking through the shop floor, even if it's on their way from a stockroom to the cash register, is responsible for the look. So if they see something out of place, they should be looking at it, and that's how you should tell your staff. So the first thing is, what is visual merchandising? Because it encompasses an awful lot of things. So visual merchandising to me starts from the outside. When you drive in your car into your car park, How easy is it to get a space? How accessible is it to get out and get into your garden centre? What does it look like? How well gardened is it? Are the plants alive, well and blooming? Is it a good example of your expertise? So the outside is very important. Is the paintwork clean and fresh? Is there a lovely display outside? Are you using vertical walls to show the customer what the new trends are? How pleased are you with your first appearance from your customer's point of view? And then when you get to the door, it's what are your windows like? How many of you hear of windows? Window display opportunities? Yeah?
Just a few.
Because if you don't, it's worthwhile looking for how you can create a display, if not a window, some kind of an external display to your business, whether that's planted or whether it's product. Okay? And then the branding. So regardless of where you use your brand and how often you use your brand, whether it's on your website, on your business cards, on your shirts like you've got on today, whether it's on any of the equipment that you have available, any of your handouts, that your branding is consistent. So that's part of visual merchandising. And also all of the signage that you use inside the store. Okay?
Okay, and then once you get inside the store, and this is something that sometimes garden centres don't tend to do, and you might even not know some of this terminology, but it's about focal points. And focal points are things that stop you. So once you walk into a place, they actually stop you and make you want to have a look at whatever is in that display. In this instance, in a House of Fraser department store, this is a really big entrance area from a lift well, and it was a void, a big huge void. By putting this display in there as people come out from the lifts, before they go on into the department, it actually makes them stop and look at a story that we're telling them. Interior design, visual merchandisers get involved in interior design. In House of Fraser, we were responsible for the design of all own brand labels. So the actual shop fit, and this is a picture, a computer-generated image of the Linear brand, which is very famous within House of Fraser. So we would actually look at the design for that. And then visual merchandising in its purest form, which is about creating the wow factor, creating that thing that makes you want to go over and buy those products, and doing it in a different way that will attract people. Because people see the same things day in, day out. So as a visual merchandiser, just by making a small step change, suddenly a display that was not putting any money in the till, by sticking a mannequin there, brought the product to life, and suddenly people came towards it. So visual merchandising is there to put money in the till and bring life to products as well. And then layouts, this is something we're very passionate about. The big boys, you know, Tesco, Sainsbury's, all these big companies, they have huge teams of people who sit in offices watching how customers walk around like ants, and then tweaking the layout and moving the milk from there to there, which annoys us, but actually gets us to a dead part of the store. In a lot of small stores and small companies, people don't really think about the layout, but layout is vitally important. Visual merchandisers can help you with layout and help you make people walk through your departments and put points of interest along the way to tell a story.
Okay, and then finally, it's about the atmosphere. So a lot of you came to hear John speak about clicks and bricks. And the thing is that clicks now hold people's interest. People love surfing the net. They're able to watch videos, they're able to interact, they're able to leave opinions, and they really like it. So you've got to make your building and what they experience in the store even better. It's got to be exciting, it's got to be somewhere that you want to go, and it isn't just about the weekend, although we talked about the weekend experience, it is a good experience all the time. So creating atmosphere is several-fold. It's the staff, what they're wearing, how they look. You know, you just have to think about Abercrombie and Fitch and how they actually, you know, select the staff to match the brand. Then you also have to think about the atmosphere, music, the smell, the colour of the place. Is it drab? Is it bright? Is it cool? Is it calm? And finally, events. What's happening? What's interacting? When you walk into a department store, the first department that you hit, what's the first department in a department store usually? All the girls will know, because it's always cosmetics, perfume, yeah? And every counter that you walk past with perfumery and cosmetics, they're doing something. they're, you know, sorting people's eyebrows, they're testing colours, they're doing facials. That's why those departments are there, because it's active, it generates excitement and it animates what's going on. So just think about that whenever you're planning your own layout. How can you animate your store as soon as people come in? What could you be demonstrating? What could you be showing? What could you be letting them smell? The smell of a rose, the touch of a lovely piece of pottery, what is it that you're trying to demonstrate? So think about these things too. Okay, so the next thing that we've done then, if that's what visual merchandising is all about, how do you pull a look together? And I think the easiest way to do that is to show you some pictures of good examples of fabulous merchandising. Okay? So the first thing that we thought we'd do was, because you're all garden related businesses, we thought let's try and look at how do you design a garden? How would you design a garden? Because most of you here would know how to design a garden. And see how similar that is to how do you design a space for a retail space. And we found some surprising results, didn't we? Because
Actually looking at it,
fact,
yeah, it was exactly the
they're
same.
very, very similar. So if you can design a garden, you can design.
Terminology was different, but the principles are exactly the same.
Okay, so this piece of information here is actually from Channel 4, and it's about how to design a garden in 7 stages. So what the words on here aren't ours, because we're saying how do you design a garden. They're from Channel 4. So the first thing they told us was work out your space, and it said think about what you want from the space, balance practicalities such as your shed, your washing line with the things that you want to have, get a piece of paper out, and then work out where the desirables and the necessities need to go, so things you need access to. So for shops, Phil, it's very similar.
Exactly the same, because that's the first thing that we do whenever we're working with a company, doesn't matter how big or small, is we like to get a piece of paper, and once we've understood the company and what they're trying to achieve, is to draw it out. And the thing is, I've been into loads of businesses, and when you go into a business and they're making a move or changing things, they're stuck in and things are flying everywhere and everything's animated and you're walking over things and the customers can't get it right. And actually, customers do like disruptions. As soon as you start doing anything, they come in. However, when you're working with smaller objects, it's easy with fashion. You can gather it all